Here is the most important thing I need you to understand before this video starts. The man who invented the American shopping mall died despising what he had created. Not disappointed, not conflicted, despising. He stood at a lectern in Vienna in 1978 and said, on the record, "I refuse to take credit for these developments. I am not the father of these monsters." These monsters. He was talking about the American shopping mall, the thing he invented. How does something like that happen? How does a man create one of the most powerful commercial environments in human history, watch it spread to every suburb in America, fundamentally restructure how an entire nation shops, eats, socializes, and spends leisure time, and end up publicly disowning the whole thing? The answer starts not in America at all. It starts in Vienna, Austria, in 1938. But here's the deeper thing this video is actually about. What happens when an idea is bigger than the person who had it? The diner was supposed to feed night workers. It became an American institution. The motel was supposed to give travelers somewhere to sleep. It became a cultural icon. The neon sign was supposed to replace the light bulb. It became the visual language of a century. And the shopping mall was supposed to save the American city. Instead, it helped destroy it. By the end of this video, you are going to understand every mall parking lot, every food court, every dead anchor store in a way you never have before. And you are going to understand why, right now in 2026, the American mall is doing something nobody predicted 20 years ago. It's coming back. Let's go. To understand why Victor Gruen built what he built, you have to understand what he lost. Victor David Grunbaum was born in Vienna, Austria in 1903. Vienna in the early 20th century was one of the great cities of Western civilization. The Ringstrasse, the coffee houses, the opera, the pedestrian street culture of the old city where you walked everywhere, where commerce and culture and community happened at street level. Gruen became an architect. More than that, a theatrical set designer and political satirist. He wrote and performed in cabaret shows that skewered the rising fascist movement in Austria. He was Jewish, politically leftist, artistically unconventional, and deeply, fundamentally European in his sense of what a city should be. In March of 1938, Adolf Hitler's forces marched into Vienna. The Anschluss, the annexation of Austria into Nazi Germany, happened overnight. Within days, Gruen's professional life was over. His assets were seized. His friends were being arrested. His world, the coffee houses, the Ringstrasse, the pedestrian city he loved, was gone. He fled to the United States with his wife, his architectural portfolio, and, by his own account, $8 American. $8. He arrived in New York City in 1938 speaking almost no English. He was 35 years old. He had no professional contacts in America, no client base, no money. What he did have was a bone-deep understanding of what great urban commercial space felt like. Gruen's first American commission is almost comically small compared to what he would eventually build. A Viennese leather goods company called Lederer de Paris wants to open a retail shop on Fifth Avenue. The shop is tiny, a narrow storefront. But Gruen does something nobody in American retail design was doing in 1939. He treats the storefront window not as a display case, but as a theatrical stage. Dramatically lit, spatially complex, telling a visual story that pulls the pedestrian off the sidewalk and into the store. Not just showing products, creating a world the customer wants to enter. The store opens, the window stops traffic on Fifth Avenue. But Gruen is not thinking about stores, he is thinking about cities. He is watching what is happening to American cities after World War II and becoming increasingly alarmed. The GI Bill makes home ownership possible for millions of veterans. The Federal Highway Program begins building roads. And American families move, by the millions, out of the cities into the suburbs. The car is the key to everything. In 1945, America has about 25 million registered automobiles. By 1955, that number is 52 million. The car is no longer a luxury. It is the infrastructure of American life. And what the car does to the traditional commercial street is devastating. Stores follow customers to the suburbs, strip malls appear, and the old pedestrian city begins disappearing. And then, in the early 1950s, Gruen gets an idea. What if you could take the European pedestrian city experience, the streets, the shops, the restaurants, the public spaces, and transplant it into the American suburb? What if you could build a place where the car brings you there, but then you parked it and walked? A climate-controlled, human-scale pedestrian urban space in the middle of the American suburb. What if you could give the suburbs a downtown? I want to stop for a second and ask you something specific. Think about your relationship with malls, personally. Were you a mall kid? Did you grow up spending Saturday afternoons in one? Is there a specific mall you can still smell? The food court, the carpet, the perfume and pretzels? Or did you watch your local mall die? Drop it in the comments, because the story of the American mall is intensely personal for tens of millions of Americans. The client is the Dayton Company, a Minneapolis department store family watching their customer base migrate to the suburbs south of the city. They ask Victor Gruen to design a shopping center for a site in Edina, Minnesota, a suburb about 10 miles south of Minneapolis. Gruen takes the commission. And then he does something that was not in the brief. He comes back with a proposal for something that has never been built in America before. Not an open-air strip mall, not a row of stores along a road, an enclosed building. A single, unified architectural environment, with a roof over everything, climate-controlled, with fountains and trees and art inside, with a central gathering space, the garden court, that had nothing to do with shopping at all, a public square. And surrounding this public square, 2 levels of retail shops, anchored at each end by a full department store, so that customers would have to walk past all the smaller shops to get from one anchor to the other. That single spatial decision, the anchor store at each end, is the most economically powerful design move in the history of American retail. Every single enclosed mall ever built uses some version of it. The Dayton Company approves the proposal. Construction begins in Edina, Minnesota, and what rises on that former farmland is something America has never seen. A building that is not quite a store, not quite a street, not quite a city, but something of all three simultaneously. On October 8, 1956, Southdale Center opens in Edina, Minnesota. Time magazine covers it. Architectural publications from around the world send correspondence. Retailers, developers, city planners, architects, everyone comes to see what Gruen has built. The garden court at the center of Southdale is 10 stories tall, a vast, naturally lit interior space with a skylight roof, live trees and plants, a goldfish pond, cafe seating, the specific quality of light and space that Gruen had spent 17 years trying to recreate from his memory of Viennese street life. Visitors walk in from the Minnesota cold and enter what feels like a Mediterranean street in perpetual perfect weather. Victor Gruen is celebrated, called a visionary. Architectural critics compare Southdale's garden court to the great arcades of Milan and Brussels. The New Yorker profiles him. He is, at this moment, one of the most celebrated architects in America. And then the developers arrive, and they see something completely different from what Gruen built. Gruen sees a community space, a pedestrian city, a public square with shops attached. The developers see the anchor store formula, the enclosed environment that keeps customers inside, the rent from specialty retailers, the parking lot, enormous, mandatory, monetizable. They want the machine. Through the late 1950s and into the 1960s, enclosed malls begin appearing across suburban America, each one using Gruen's basic formula, but stripping away everything he actually cared about. The ceilings get lower. The natural light disappears. The public gathering spaces shrink. The trees go. The art goes. What he designed as a street becomes a corridor. What he designed as a town square becomes a concourse. By 1975, there are over 16,000 shopping centers in the United States. Malls are consuming farmland at the edges of every American city. Downtown retail districts begin dying as their anchor department stores open mall branches and eventually close their city center flagships entirely. The thing Gruen built to save the city is killing it. But here's the thing about the 1970s and 80s mall that I need you to hold in your head alongside Gruen's growing horror. People loved it. Not loved it in a passive way. Loved it genuinely, enthusiastically, culturally. The American enclosed mall becomes a social institution unlike anything that existed before it. For suburban American teenagers in the 1970s and 80s, the mall is the only public space in their geography that belongs to them. The suburb has no street life, no cafe culture, no public square. The mall is all of those things simultaneously, and it's air-conditioned. The mall rat, a teenager who spends weekend afternoons at the mall with no intention of buying anything, becomes a recognized sociological phenomenon. The food court, which Gruen despised as a corruption of his cafe vision, becomes one of the defining culinary experiences of an entire American generation. Orange Julius, Cinnabon, Sparrow, Mrs. Field's cookies, Auntie Anne's pretzels. The food court smell, that specific combination of cinnamon, fried dough, and industrial cleaning product, is one of the most powerful nostalgia triggers in the American sensory memory. The mall produces its own music retail ecosystem. The record store, the music listening station, the cassette tape bought at Sam Goody or Camelot Music, the album artwork studied for 20 minutes before purchase. For millions of American teenagers, the mall record store is where music becomes personal, where you find the album that changes your life. By 1990, there are more shopping malls in America than high schools. Victor Gruen is watching all of this from Vienna, where he has returned in 1968 after becoming disillusioned with what American commercial development has done with his idea. He is not happy. And meanwhile, Gruen is in Vienna. He has returned to Europe, the city he fled 30 years earlier. He is watching American commercial developers take his spatial formula, strip out everything he cared about, and replicate it across the country 16,000 times. Each one consuming farmland, each one killing a downtown, each one a little further from what he imagined. Here is the darkest chapter in this story, and it involves your brain. While Gruen was publicly denouncing the mall, retail designers and consumer behavior researchers were quietly naming a psychological phenomenon after him, not as a tribute, as a clinical description of something that happens to every person who walks into an enclosed shopping mall. They called it the Gruen transfer. The Gruen transfer happens in the first 30 to 60 seconds after entry. The controlled environment, the absence of windows, the lack of clocks, the engineered sensory input, causes the shopper's prefrontal cortex to disengage from goal-directed mode. The shopper forgets what they came for. They start wandering, and wandering shoppers spend more money. Everything about the classic enclosed mall is designed to trigger and prolong this state. No windows, removes the sky so you can't tell if it's noon or 4 p.m. Anchor stores at opposite ends, forces you to walk past every retailer. The food court at the far end pulls you deep into the building before you've spent anything. The directory maps, designed to be just confusing enough that you explore rather than navigate. Victor Gruen designed the enclosed mall to recreate the serendipitous, pleasure-driven wandering of a Viennese pedestrian street. He wanted people to wander. He wanted them to discover. He wanted them to feel the pleasure of spontaneous urban encounter. What the developers built was a machine that used those same principles to extract maximum spending from people who had lost their bearings. When Gruen found out researchers had named this phenomenon after him, he was furious. The golden age peaks in the early 1990s. Then the forces that will kill them all begin assembling. First, category killers. In the 1980s, a new retail format emerges. The big box specialty store, Toys R Us, Home Depot, Best Buy. These stores don't need to be in malls. They have their own parking lots, vastly larger inventory. They undercut mall prices because they don't pay mall rent. Then the internet. Amazon launches in 1994 as an online bookstore. Within 10 years, it has destroyed the mall bookstore category entirely. By 2010, the logic that sustained every specialty retailer, you need to come to us to buy this thing, is gone for virtually every product category. The mall's fundamental value proposition collapses. Then the department stores begin dying. Sears files for bankruptcy in 2018, JCPenney in 2020, Lord & Taylor closes entirely, Macy's shutters hundreds of locations. The anchor stores that Gruen built his entire spatial logic around start going dark. They're enormous, empty shells. 100,000 to 200,000 square feet cannot be backfilled. When the anchor dies, the mall formula breaks. By 2017, retail analysts estimate 25% of American malls will close within 5 years. The term dead mall enters the cultural vocabulary. Photographers begin documenting them. The empty food courts, the vacant anchor spaces, the escalators still running in a building with nobody in it. The internet finds them darkly beautiful. A specific aesthetic emerges, liminal, melancholy, the ruins of a very recent civilization. And something unexpected happens. The internet discovers dead malls and becomes fascinated. YouTube channels dedicated to exploring them get millions of views. The liminal space aesthetic, the eerie beauty of empty spaces designed for crowds, becomes one of the defining visual sensibilities of online culture. The mall in death becomes more culturally powerful than the mall in life. And then, right when it seems like the story of the American mall is simply a story of inevitable decline, something nobody predicted begins happening. The malls that survive stop trying to be retail destinations. They start becoming something else entirely. Medical offices, colleges and universities, indoor pickleball courts, axe throwing, go-kart tracks, food halls with local restaurant operators replacing national chains, live music venues, climbing walls, film studios using the enormous anchor spaces for production. The mall that was supposed to replace the city starts actually becoming the city. Mixed use, dense, walkable within its boundaries. The parking lots, the enormous car-scaled, soul-destroying seas of asphalt that surrounded every mall and that Gruen despised most of all, begin being converted. Trees planted where cars once sat, apartments built at the edges, farmers markets on weekends. The suburban wasteland becoming what Gruen always wanted it to be, the food court, which was perhaps the most cynically commercialized element of the developer's version of Gruen's mall, is being replaced by something much closer to what he actually wanted. Not national chain operators running assembly line food in identical booths. Local restaurant operators, chefs with identities. The cafe culture of the Viennese pedestrian street, finally, 40 years late. Victor Gruen died in Vienna in 1980, 2 years after the speech where he disowned the mall. He never saw any of this. He never saw the parking lots becoming parks. He never saw the anchor stores becoming apartments. He never saw the food courts becoming food halls. He never saw the machine he hated slowly becoming what he actually wanted it to be. Here's the final piece of the Victor Gruen story. What he actually invented, the real invention, beneath the architectural formula, was the idea that the American suburb needed a center, that the people who had been moved out of cities and into identical houses on identical streets were still human beings who needed public space, who needed somewhere to be together. And here's the actual science. Studies of human behavior in enclosed pedestrian environments confirm what Gruen intuitively understood in 1954. People in climate-controlled, pedestrian-only, visually stimulating enclosed spaces show measurably higher social interaction rates, longer dwell times, and higher subjective well-being scores than the same people in car-scaled commercial environments. And here is the final irony of the Gruen transfer. The disorientation it produces, the loss of goal-directed focus, the shift into wandering mode, is actually the same neurological state that makes people happiest in cities. The unfocused, open, serendipitous attention of a person wandering a great street. Gruen designed for that state. The developers monetized it. The state itself was never the problem. In 1978, Victor Gruen stands at a lectern in Vienna and says, "I would like to take this opportunity to disclaim paternity once and for all. I refuse to father these bastard developments. And I want to be clear about something. He was wrong to say this. Not about what the developers had done, about his own responsibility for the idea, because the idea was right. The developers took his spatial formula and stripped it of his intention. They kept the machine and threw away the soul. And Gruen decided he had failed. He hadn't failed. He had been misread. The proof is in what the surviving malls are becoming right now. They are, without knowing it, finishing what Victor Gruen started. The next time you walk into a mall, or into what a mall is becoming, and you feel that specific sensation of being inside a built environment that exists for human beings rather than cars, that has weather and light and space and the possibility of running into someone you know that you are feeling the ghost of a 35-year-old Austrian architect who arrived in New York in 1938 with $8 and a memory of Vienna. He died in 1980, 2 years after that speech. He never saw it. The monster, it turns out, was changing. It just needed 40 more years, and a pandemic, and Amazon, and a generation of developers who ran out of other ideas and accidentally started building what an Austrian refugee tried to give us in 1956. Now, if you think the mall story had surprising darkness in it, the next origin story might be the most morally complex one yet. We're going after the origin of the American fast food restaurant. The two brothers who invented the entire system, the milkshake machine salesman who took it from them, the one design decision that changed what Americans eat forever, and the specific moment when a brilliant system became something its creators never intended. Subscribe, share this with your mall person, drop your mall memory in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.